Facing a life sentence is a harsh reality that most can't grasp, but in a few unusual cases, teenagers find themselves at the center of these heavy judgments, confronting the weight of their crimes and their futures. Today, we'll take a closer look at how teens react when they learn they'll spend the rest of their lives behind bars.
The Police Memorial Building. Today is June 23rd. You know what time it is? Do you have any idea what time it is?
Case 1. Christian Fernandez. Abused from age 3, Christian was angry and violent toward other kids. At age 12, he murdered his 2-year-old half-brother as her son lay bleeding and unconscious in the bedroom beside hers. Bianella Susana surfed the internet. She downloaded music, logged into YouTube, checked her online bank account, and searched Pipa and Kate Middleton gossip. She made a couple of medical-related searches, including those for concussion and unconscious for hours. Susana rushed home from running errands after her 12-year-old son, Christian Fernandez, called her around 9 a.m. to say that David fell from his bunk bed and was unconscious. She did not call a doctor nor take the toddler to a hospital until about 5:25 p.m., more than 7 hours after her first search for gets knocked out. Had she taken the toddler to a hospital, he could have survived his injuries. David arrived at the hospital, his eyes rolled back in his head, his body limp. He wore a blue cast over a broken leg, an injury he received the previous January after Christian attacked him. Susana told investigators the injury happened at a playground because she did not want the Department of Children and Family Services to remove them from her care. She waited 2 days to take him to the hospital. Susana left Christian home alone with David and her 5-year-old son while she ran errands. Police charged Susana with manslaughter and took her into custody. Yet they felt that something was not right with the story. After finding blood in several rooms and areas of the home, police took Christian to the station for additional questioning.
8:35 in the morning. Can you read, Christian? Can you read English? Do you read Spanish too? I want you to read that top line for me.
Initially, Christian stuck with the story of David falling from the bunk bed. Finally, he came clean, admitting to slamming his brother's head into a bookcase several times because he was angry. When the boy fell unconscious, Christian picked him up and laid him in his bed. He denied intent to kill his brother and several times asked police if doctors could wake him up. Christian made another shocking confession during the police interview. He told police he abused his 5-year-old sibling.
So how can the doctors wake him up? He was gonna have to wake up on his arm on.
I don't know if they can wake him up, to be honest.
He was taken into custody, charged as an adult with first-degree murder and assault. Prosecutors contend that Christian repeatedly slammed 2-year-old half-brother David Galarraga's head on a bookshelf to kill him. The psychological report shows Fernandez's perception of the death from the Meadows interview. He said that he picked up his younger brother and pushed him into the bookcase. He said that his brother was bleeding and unresponsive, so he carried him to the bed and called his mother. Christian denied any plans or intent to kill his brother. He seemed rather defensive about discussing what triggered his anger. He talked about having a flashback of the abuse by his stepfather as the motive for this offense. Susana became pregnant with Christian at age 11 and gave birth at age 12. His father, 20-year-old Jose Fernandez, said Susana would not leave him alone and came to him to get the love and affection her mother did not give. He left shortly after Christian's birth. She then married a man named Luis Galarraga, who almost immediately began to abuse Christian. When police learned of the abuse, an investigation began. Last year, they issued an arrest warrant for his arrest. Learning this information, Luis fatally shot himself in the head in front of David and the 5-year-old. Susana pleaded guilty to manslaughter. A judge spared her jail time and placed her on probation for 10 years. She admitted in court that Christian had a horrible life and that she should have been a better mother.
Susana came into court today and accepted responsibility for her involvement in the role that she took in David's death, and it's the first of many steps in achieving.
A judge dismissed Christian's confession, citing he did not understand his Miranda rights during police questioning. Without the confession, prosecutors did not have enough evidence to prosecute him on the assault charge. It was dismissed, but the first-degree murder charge stuck. Christian was found guilty of first-degree murder as an adult, but the judge handed down a juvenile life sentence. He was released from juvenile detention in July 2018 at age 19 and placed on probation. The judge also ordered Christian to stay away from minors and not to have contact with his surviving siblings unless they first contacted him. He hardly showed any emotion during his sentence. This is probably because of the childhood trauma he went through.
She what? She killed her mom! She killed her mom? Yeah, and I'm screaming about.
Case 2, Carly Gregg, Mississippi teen. Carly Gregg was sentenced to life in prison in September 2024, 6 months after the murder of her mother, Ashley Smiley, and the attempted murder of her stepfather, Heath Smiley. After Carly's trial, many true crime followers became interested in learning more about her and her story. Carly was 14 years old when she killed her 40-year-old mother on March 19, 2024, at their family's home in Brandon, Mississippi. Home surveillance footage captured the teen walking around the home with a .5 .357 Magnum pistol from beneath her parents' mattress behind her back, followed by the sound of several gunshots, according to Newsweek. She tried to shoot her stepfather also, but the bullet hit his arm and he was able to wrestle her, and then placed a call to 911 later on.
She killed her mom? Yeah, and I'm screaming about. Where's the mom? Mom, when I do this, she got to kill me. Where's the mom?
Prosecutors claimed at Carly's trial in September 2024 that the shooting took place hours after a friend told Ashley, who was a math teacher, about Carly's marijuana use. Carly's mom reportedly searched her daughter's room and found vape pens just before the shooting. Carly shot Ashley 3 times in her bedroom before returning to the kitchen and texting 39-year-old Heath about when he would be home, the security footage revealed. Prosecutors alleged that Carly then invited a friend over and asked if they were squeamish around dead bodies before showing them her deceased mother on the floor of Carly's bedroom. Carly then allegedly waited for her stepfather to return home and shot him in the shoulder. Heath was able to wrestle the gun away from the teen, and she ran out of the house, according to multiple reports. Carly was captured soon afterward near the house. Carly's lawyers did not deny that she killed Ashley. However, they argued that she was experiencing a mental health crisis on the day of the murder and did not remember the shooting. They asked the jury to find her not guilty by reason of insanity, Newsweek reported. She was having mood issues, eating disorder issues, cutting herself, hearing voices, and sleeping difficulty, all leading up to January of 2024. Dr. Andrew Clark testified on September 17, 2024, concluding that Carly had bipolar disorder. Dr. Clark also claimed that Carly was previously prescribed medication to treat symptoms of depression.
Did she ever report to you that she was hearing voices of any sort?
No.
Did she ever report that she was having any sort of hallucinations?
No.
The prosecution's expert witness psychiatrist, Dr. Jason Pickett, refuted the claim that Carly was unaware of her actions when she was killing her mother, calling her crime diabolical and claiming that she had narcissistic tendencies.
Does not meet Mississippi's standard for insanity at the time of the offense, and that she knew the nature, quality, and wrongfulness of her actions.
After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a guilty verdict on September 20th, 2024. She was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for first-degree murder and attempted murder, as well as 10 years in prison for tampering with evidence. Multiple outlets reported the sentences will run concurrently. Carly broke into sobs as her guilty verdict was read, but she regained her composure and remained stoic during her sentencing. Carly Gregg is evil, and that's not easy to say. But the truth of the matter is that sometimes evil comes in young packages. Rankin County District Attorney Bubba Bramlett said, according to Newsweek, Carly's defense team plans to appeal the decision. The outlet reported.
Aoyo.
Case 3. Heavenly Aoyo. Heavenly Aoyo, an 18-year-old Fall River woman who 3 years ago stabbed a 68-year-old woman to death inside her relative's home, pleaded guilty in Fall River Superior Court to second-degree murder. Bristol County District Attorney Thomas M. Quinn III announced the defendant was sentenced by Judge Rene Dupuis to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 19 years.
Prosecutors say she stabbed 68-year-old Ana Vasquez Rodriguez to death in the home that belongs to Aroyo's great uncle.
On October 6, 2019, the defendant entered Ana Vasquez Rodriguez's bedroom and stabbed her 70 times. The homicide took place in the Johnson Street home of the defendant's great uncle, who had taken custody of the defendant at the request of the defendant's mother a week prior to the killing. The victim was the mother of the great uncle's girlfriend. On October 6, the great uncle and his girlfriend were planning on taking the defendant to New York to visit another relative and obtain some legal documents in order to help the couple to formally gain custody of the troubled defendant. The trip, however, was delayed due to car problems. As the day wore on, the defendant became increasingly agitated and impatient. Then, late in the afternoon, the defendant retrieved a pair of scissors from the kitchen, went up to the victim's bedroom, and murdered her. The victim was bedridden after suffering a stroke and could not defend herself. At the time of the killing, the only other person inside the home was the victim's grandson, who was playing a video game with a headset on. After killing the victim, the defendant showered, disposed of her clothing in a nearby dumpster, and told the victim's grandson that his grandmother wasn't well. When the grandson looked in on his grandmother, he immediately called 911 and police arrived shortly thereafter. At first, the defendant claimed she was outside with the dog and witnessed a masked man running from the home, but while in custody, she made a series of inculpatory, spontaneous admissions. The case was prosecuted by Assistant District Attorneys Dennis Collins and Mary Claire Flynn. This case was a tragedy for everyone involved. The defendant brutally murdered the victim, who was only trying to help her move forward with her life. The defendant was 15 at the time and suffering from mental health issues. However, the facts of the case clearly show she is a danger to the community, and the state prison's sentence is appropriate. District Attorney Quinn said, "My heart goes out to the victim's family, who was present in court yesterday. There's nothing any of them could have done to prevent this terrible incident from occurring. I hope the resolution of this case brings some closure to them and they can try to move forward with their lives."
There was no doubt in my mind. I thought I was going home.
And why was there no doubt in your mind?
Because he promised me I was going home.
Case 4. Kandra Cook. The tragic events surrounding the shooting of Emmanuel Purcell, a young man lured into a robbery orchestrated by Kandra Cook, unfolded in a matter of minutes. Cook, a then 18-year-old student at Mainland High School, used a dating app to entice Purcell and another man to a secluded location under the pretense of a marijuana deal and encounter. However, Cook's intentions were far from innocent. She had conspired with her boyfriend to ambush the unsuspecting victims and rob them. As Purcell and his companion arrived at the designated spot, Cook's boyfriend emerged from the shadows, armed with a gun. A chaotic struggle ensued, resulting in Purcell being shot and critically injured. The incident sent shockwaves through the community, highlighting the dangers of online interactions and the devastating consequences of impulsive actions. Cook's actions led to severe charges, including carjacking, attempted carjacking with a deadly weapon, and battery. While she was not the one who pulled the trigger, she was deemed responsible for orchestrating the events that led to Purcell's shooting. Cook apologized for the crime before her sentencing, but that changed nothing.
Ms. Cook, you're before the court for sentencing. A couple of things going in your favor. One, you didn't hold a firearm during these episodes. The second is that the victim luckily survived.
As the judge handed down the sentence, the courtroom fell silent. Once a bright-eyed kid, Kandra Cook was now dealing with the fallout from her disastrous scheme. A 20-year prison sentence stood in her way, a sobering reminder of the seriousness of what she had done. Cook's mother fell on the ground in shock and disbelief as the judge's remarks reverberated throughout the room. A tragic tribute to the misery and suffering that had befallen their family, her sobs of anguish filled the air.
I'm going to adjudicate you guilty of all three offenses. As to count 3, I'm going to sentence you to 11 years Florida State Prison, Department of Corrections.
Her daughter's once bright and promising life had been permanently changed as a result of a careless choice. In addition to ruining the lives of the victims, Cook's actions had a lasting negative impact on her own prospects.
Nettles worked at the Little Caesars pizza shop on Welch and Chevrolet. A co-worker who did not want to go on camera described Nettles as a nice guy.
Case 5. Jiwan Wickwear. Unlike most cases, Jiwan's case has raised a lot of questions. Many are questioning if the sentence was a fair one. Let's dive into the story. When he was 16, he and another young kid robbed a pizza delivery man. Both kids were armed with guns. Tragically, his friend shot and killed the man. Although this was Jiwan's first offense, and despite a documented learning disability, troubled home environment, and a psychological evaluation concluding that Jiwan could be rehabilitated, the judge sentenced Jiwan to life in prison with no possibility of parole, LWOP. The boy who pulled the trigger was acquitted because a witness could not identify him. Wickwear, now 20, was 16 at the time of Nettles' death. Heyman originally sentenced him in August 2013 to life in prison without parole. He was the first juvenile in the state who faced the possibility of life without parole in Michigan, following the U.S. Supreme Court's 2012 ruling that declared mandatory life sentences without parole for juveniles unconstitutional. The resentencing hearing was held for Wickwear after a law was signed by Governor Rick Snyder, allowing judges to sentence juvenile killers to a term of years in prison rather than life without parole. I just feel like a wrong has been righted, said Wickwear's attorney, Jody Hemingway. First-degree felony murder was statutorily punishable by life in prison without parole at the time of Wickwear's original sentencing. However, a law signed by Governor Rick Snyder in March gave judges the discretion to sentence teen killers to life in prison or 25 to more than 60 years in prison to comply with the Supreme Court decision. The new law also applied to teens whose cases were on direct appeal at the time of its signing. Wickwear was appealing his conviction when Snyder signed the law, and Genesee County Prosecutor David Layton's office agreed to remand the case back to Heyman for the resentencing hearing, since the judge did not have the option to originally sentence Wickwear to a term of years in prison. Layton's office pushed for Heyman to stand by the original sentence. Our position was he should be sentenced to life without parole, Layton said. Heyman could not be reached for comment on the sentence. Wickwear's original sentence was handed down following 2 days of testimony that explored Wickwear's mental status, criminal history, and upbringing. A woman who was in Nettles' Jeep with him as he delivered pizza said that Nettles was initially shot in the back outside of the vehicle. He then made it back inside the Jeep, where he was shot again. Nettles managed to drive away from the scene before his vehicle came to a rest after crashing into a fire hydrant.
Near a home down the block, and after being shot multiple times by the alleged robber, he actually got into his SUV and drove until he could no more. Nettles worked at the Little Caesars pizza shop on Welch and Chevrolet. A co-worker.
Hemingway argued that Wickwear aided and abetted in Nettles' killing, but did not actually fire the shots that killed him. She said that the Supreme Court's decision showed that sentences of life in prison without parole should be reserved for the most egregious cases. However, Layton said Wickwear shouldn't get a pass just because his shots missed. I think it was an egregious crime, Layton said. Wickwear is one of 14 killers who have been convicted of first-degree murder in Genesee County following the Supreme Court's decision.
Blank in his car, then dragged his body out of the car, robbed him of his wallet, took a photo of the dead body and sent it to a friend, was then the next day found with that friend who he sent the picture to, using the dead victim's credit card at an ATM where he attempted to take out $500.
Case 6, Anthony Okeleberry.
$250,000 with the added condition of house arrest.
In 2019, Anthony Okeleberry, a 16-year-old, committed a crime that shocked the Las Vegas community. The victim was Hersey Addison, a 75-year-old Vietnam veteran working as an unarmed security guard at an apartment complex. On the day of the incident, Addison was sitting in his car, reportedly doing a crossword puzzle while patrolling the area, when he was approached and fatally shot. Okeleberry was later charged with Addison's murder, a crime described as brutal and senseless. The case unfolded when police discovered Addison's wallet and credit cards were missing after the murder. Investigators quickly began tracking any activity related to these cards. Shortly after the murder, Okeleberry and a friend attempted to use the stolen credit cards at a gas station. Surveillance footage from the station showed the two young men trying to withdraw money using Addison's cards, and after being flagged for fraud, authorities were alerted. Surveillance video led investigators to Del Sol Academy, a local high school where Okeleberry was a student.
He was shaking at times. The teen faces charges of murder, robbery, burglary, and using a credit card without consent. His defense argued that he needs to be back in school and asked the court for a bail of $55,000. But prosecutors said it's important to note Okeleberry was arrested in class.
Police arrested Okeleberry on school grounds, where they found him in possession of a handgun. Evidence gathered by the police, including ballistics and fingerprints, linked the weapon to the murder scene. Blood spatter was also found on Okeleberry's gun, and ballistic analysis confirmed that the shell casing at the scene matched rounds in his possession. During questioning, Okeleberry initially denied involvement, claiming he was only near the crime scene and blaming the shooting on a homeless man. However, police found Addison's identification and additional stolen items at the home of an acquaintance who had reportedly supplied Okeleberry with the gun. Okeleberry eventually pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, acknowledging his role in Addison's death. During the court proceedings, his defense team portrayed his actions as a result of youthful impulsiveness and poor judgment, whereas the prosecution highlighted the calculated nature of the crime and the immense loss to Addison's family and the community. Okeleberry received a life sentence, with eligibility for parole only after 18 years.
Life behind bars for a brutal killing of a security guard. 19-year-old Anthony Okeleberry was sentenced yesterday and will not have the possibility for parole for 18 years.
The murder of Addison underscored significant concerns about juvenile violence and security risks in residential areas, especially given that Addison, a decorated war veteran, had taken on a job he likely viewed as low risk in his retirement years.
Cleaned up the evidence, then took his wallet to buy new shoes and drugs. During the investigation, Henderson police found 2 videos of the 2 suspects inside the house, with one of them holding a gun.
Case 7. Cody Harland and Jaden Caruso. Cody Harland, 19, and Jaden Caruso, 18, were found guilty in August of first-degree murder and robbery with a deadly weapon in connection with the June 8, 2018 shooting. Harland also was convicted of being an accessory to murder. Both will be eligible for parole in 20 years.
With first-degree murder back in June of 2018 when the murder took place. In the arrest report, Caruso and Harland, who were tried as adults, initially told police they were playing a game of Russian roulette in an empty house.
As parents, we're just not supposed to bury our children, Herndon said, not in just situations that are preventable, but in situations that are mind-boggling. Prosecutors have said Caruso, 16 at the time, fired the fatal shot and afterwards shared a video of Matthew's body in a pool of blood on Snapchat, while Harland, 17 at the time, took cash from the victim's pockets. "Bro," Caruso said in the Snapchat video, "I just caught a body." The pair returned to the house at 2736 Cool Lilac Ave shortly afterward to clean up the scene and hide Matthew's body inside a downstairs closet under a plastic sheet. Harland dragged the body into the closet, police have said. Matthew had a very trusting heart, and he was never good at seeing the ugly or the bad that some people possessed. His mother, Jamie Minkler, said Tuesday, "My Matthew just didn't have that kind of heart." At trial, Harland's attorney, Ryan Helmick, conceded that his client was guilty of accessory to murder, but pointed to Caruso for the more serious charges, arguing that Harland was asleep on a couch in the living room at the time of the shooting.
Matt Minkler didn't plan to kill him. He didn't murder him. Why? Who is he?
Caruso's lawyer, Macy Polsky, acknowledged to jurors that Caruso fired the .357 caliber revolver that killed Matthew, but the attorney blamed drugs and alcohol for the shooting. My deepest apologies to you and everyone who has suffered from the loss of Matthew, Caruso said to Matthew's family before he was sentenced. There was no plan to hurt your son. When it was Harland's turn to speak, he read from a lengthy statement he had prepared, saying he never thought in a million years he could be convicted of first-degree murder for falling asleep on a couch. I appreciate some of what you said, Mr. Harland, but the reality is, in cases like this, it's not always about who pulled the trigger. I mean, you can sit up there as long as you want, and every night you're in prison and say, I didn't kill this man, Herndon said. But so many of these situations arise because of a combination of factors and a combination of people. During the hearing, Matthew's family packed the courtroom gallery. Losing you has left me with a broken heart and no way of healing, just trying to make it to the next day, said one of his older sisters, Desiree Roberts. This has left an empty hole in our family. Matthew was the youngest of 6 siblings, and Jamie and Stephen Minkler's only child together. He was a junior at Silverado High School at the time of his death and would have graduated in May. He loved playing video games, was a Packers fan, and he dreamed of one day starting his own company. According to this family, he leaves behind his parents, siblings, 3 nieces, and a 1-year-old nephew named for him.
I pray for the victims' forgiveness daily and tremendously. I hope that one day I'll be forgiven. I also apologize to the victims' loved ones.
Case 8. Terry Berger Smith, a teenager who pleaded no contest in court to kidnapping and raping a woman and live streaming the crime in Hollywood, was sentenced to 41 years in prison.
Smith attacked his 21-year-old victim as she walked to work in Hollywood. He beat her, threatened her, forced her into FaceTimed a friend while he was doing it.
On Friday, Broward County Circuit Judge Peter Holden sentenced 17-year-old Terry Berger Smith in connection to the rape of a woman on a Hollywood sidewalk back on June 10th, 2022. I sentenced Mr. Smith at this time to the lowest permissible range under the sentencing guidelines, to 495 months in a Florida state prison. This equates to 41.24 years, said Holden. Berger Smith was 14 years old at the time of the crime when prosecutors said he stalked a woman and approached her on the 300 block of South Park Road at around 4 a.m., all within walking distance of the Hollywood Police Department headquarters. Authorities said Berger Smith was following the victim, who was walking to work when he ambushed her, pushed her into bushes nearby, and assaulted her multiple times. He live-streamed the crime and was heard telling the victim he had AIDS. After the Broward State Attorney's Office considered the facts and evidence against Berger Smith, a panel of senior prosecutors decided the responsible course of action was to file criminal charges in the adult system. Berger Smith entered a plea of no contest. His attorney asked the judge for leniency, as his client was only 14 at the time of the crime, and to sentence him to 6 years in prison instead of 44 years. Before the judge gave his sentencing, Berger Smith apologized to the victim's family and begged the judge for a short sentence. I would like my freedom. I would like a chance to be a normal person and not a criminal and not a menace to society, he said.
I hope that one day I'll be forgiven. I also apologize to the victims' loved ones.
However, when the victim's mother took the stand, she told the judge he didn't deserve a second chance or a lighter sentence. The terror and suffering that the victim went through at the hands of this person, who despite being underage, committed an adult crime, has left scars on her soul, said the victim's mother. It is devastating to witness the profound impact this cruel act has had on the victim's life. She asked the judge to set an example despite Berger Smith's age. The sentencing of this person despite his age must reflect the severity of his actions and serve as a deterrent to others who seek to commit such acts of violence, said the victim's mother. She added, deliver a sentence that not only holds this person accountable for his actions, but also sends a clear message that such behavior, regardless of age, will not be tolerated in our society.
He was just 14 when he committed a brutal rape. A judge sentenced him to 495 months in prison, more than 41 years. He'll be on probation for the rest of his life.
The judge agreed and sentenced the 17-year-old to 4 decades in prison.
To look past.
The defense seeks a downward departure in juvenile sanctions. Certainly the age would qualify it, but the facts of this case.
After sentencing, the mother spoke to 7 News to thank the Hollywood Police Department and Broward State Attorney's Office. "I really would just like to thank the police department, state's attorney. They did really good work. I feel like they did the best they could, and I feel like what would happen is fair," said the victim's mother. Burger Smith's parents also took the stand before sentencing to express how hard it's been to comprehend why their son would commit such a heinous crime. "How did we get here? That's a good question. I'm trying to understand myself," said Robert Smith, Terry's father. "I didn't raise my kid knowing that one day he'd do such a thing, and I'm ashamed because I feel like maybe I missed something," said Severine Smith, Terry's mother. Burger Smith will be 58 years old when he is released from the Florida State Prison. He has 30 days to appeal his sentence. What are your thoughts on these 9 cases? Were the punishments just too harsh, or maybe not harsh enough? Let us know. And if you enjoyed these cases, then make sure to check out some more, shown on screen.